Hi, good afternoon. I can confirm that the Labour Party today had its first caucus meeting at 10:30 this morning, a caucus which of course included its 17 fantastic new MPs and the 13 additional members of now our Labour caucus. It was a meeting where we had a chance to reflect on the campaign together as a team and also talk about our next steps going forward. The conclusion of that, we also had the first meeting we've had since the campaign with Labour's front bench team, its top 10 MPs and senior MPs, and also I had a chance to also meet with our senior leadership team. That of course includes our senior party officials. In those meetings we talked about the work that we plan to do to prepare ourselves for coalition negotiations. I've tasked our front bench over the next 48 hours to work on policy work to compare some of our policies with other party policies involved in the negotiations to make sure that we're well prepared for the negotiations that will happen over the coming days and coming weeks. I can also confirm we had conversations around who would make up our senior negotiating team. I can confirm today that that team will be led by myself and Kelvin Davis as our Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. I will not confirm the remaining members of that team today. We have some firm views on who will be making up that team, but we will confirm that closer to the time of us having those formal negotiations and those formal meetings. I'm happy to take any questions.
When do you expect those formal meetings to take place?
I haven't put a timeline on that yet. I can confirm though that late yesterday, we did reach out to New Zealand First and indicate that whenever they were ready, we were happy and available to meet.
We did
that to the Chief of Staff level. No, I have not spoken directly to Mr. Peters yet, but I respect that he's taking the time to talk with his colleagues and others, and that's time and space that we will be respecting.
Did they say when they might be ready?
No, I don't have an indication as yet.
Would you expect to sit down and have any sort of formal talks before October the 7th?
Oh, look, I haven't necessarily set that expectation. I think, though, that it would be prudent of all the political parties to go and do the preparatory work because we are working to quite a tight timeline. But I fully expect as well that we won't have anything really formalised until we have those special votes in, and that's a fair expectation.
What can you offer Winston Peters in terms of trust?
Sorry, what?
What can you offer Winston Peters in terms of trust?
A good
Bill English might not be able to.
Oh, a good working relationship with our senior MPs and a good existing working relationship. Relationships are important in these negotiations, and I'd like to think that we have the existing relationship required to take forward a good negotiation and form a stable, credible, long-term coalition government.
He's cut the Greens out of the equation before. Would you be happy for him to do so again?
As I've indicated, I think we need to go into these negotiations, of course, accepting that they carry at the moment 6% of the vote.
Do you respect Mr. Peters?
Yes, I do, particularly as a senior member of Parliament with a lot of experience.
You
Yes, I do.
When you say they account for 6% of the vote.
Sorry,
you said yesterday you wouldn't have a three-way negotiation. Can you just explain why that is?
Yeah, no, what I set out yesterday was my expectation would be that we'd have talks individually with each of those parties separately. There may be a set of circumstances where further down the track that might be something that that we instigate, but at the moment I see them as being individual negotiations.
So I think that sends the message that you're shutting the Greens out.
No, not at all. I think it sends the message that this is about a negotiation between parties. Further down the track, of course, you'd leave room for that to be wider, but at this stage I think it's very much one-on-one.
You said there'll be 6% of the vote. That obviously means they've got lesser influence than what Winston Peters will have.
No, actually what I'm stating is that they are bringing vote to the table and that needs to be respected.
You met with James Shaw yesterday. What did you discuss?
We discussed the election, as you would as two-party leaders involved in a campaign period. And we discussed how we'd like to carry out our forward planning for negotiations and the expectation that, as I just set out, that both our teams will go away and do that preparatory work. I don't anticipate that we'll be meeting for a bit. There's plenty of preparation and work to be done before our formal teams meet.
Did you discuss who would be on those negotiations?
It's for, in part, James shared with me his expectations because, of course, they already have some guidelines set out within their party around who those teams are made up of.
Do you expect to have the same people negotiating from your perspective with the Greens and New Zealand First, like the same team?
Not necessarily. We may well, but not necessarily. That's not something that we need to.
Kelvin, this morning Paula Bennett said that she'd be willing to let Mr Peters be Deputy Prime Minister in that sort of scenario. Would that be something that you'd be open to?
My priority is to make sure Jacinda Ardern is the Prime Minister, and that's the main focus. So, you know, if it has to be, it has to be.
So it's something that you're open to then?
Yeah, but it's not something we would give up lightly, but it's, you know, Jacinda being the Prime Minister is the main focus here.
Either way, will there be a Māori Deputy Prime Minister?
Let's try there. Of course, Calvin's indicated that in the past when asked. But beyond that, as I said yesterday, we won't be carrying out a negotiation here in this room.
Winston Peters is coming to Parliament tomorrow. Are you hoping that you might bump into him in the corridor? Or?
Oh, look, I expect that we'll do something much more formal than that, but I respect the time that Mr Peters will need to take with his party and with his caucus members. It's the same that we've done today, and I'll leave him that same courtesy.
So you're hoping to catch up with him tomorrow, are you?
Oh no, not necessarily, no. I understand that he'll have a range of meetings. It's certainly not my expectation. We're willing and available when he is ready, but of course I've met with my party and caucus today, and I expect he'll want the space to do the same.
So you're not going to stay out the front of Parliament and wait for him?
No, I'll leave that to you guys.
You said the policy work's going to be done by your front bench. Does that indicate it's just the policies held by your front bench?
No, not at all, and I'll look beyond that, but certainly they hold a number of the major policies that we need to do that work on, but we'll be doing it across the board.
So you get all of your MPs to look at their policies and whether they match up with
we
the
need
Greens
to, across the board, we'll be doing preparations for every portfolio. Not all of it will necessarily come into play, but I think we will be working on some fairly tight timelines, and it's better to be prepared.
As part of that, are you looking into New Zealand First policy?
Yes, absolutely. Comparisons across the board.
Well, Stephen Joyce says it's only about policy, it's not about personality. Do you agree with that, or does personality and relationships do come into it?
Oh, I think relationships of trust matter. And of course, yeah, we'll be looking at policy, but there'll also be expectations around roles that individuals might have. We'll make sure we do preparation around that as well.
Calvin, have you heard from Mr Peters?
No, I haven't.
Not a text message, nothing?
No, I haven't spoken to any of the New Zealand First MPs other than Jenny Markoff. Just rang her to say congratulations. I tried to ring Peter Praone for commiserations and Shane, but he never picked up.
Mostly concerns you about what Winston is likely to want?
Oh, I don't have concerns. This will be a negotiation. I expect that we'll be talking about the things that matter to us from the campaign, and I fully expect New Zealand First will do the same, and that the Greens will do the same. I have no concerns with the negotiation. It is a negotiation after all. Each of us will come to the table with our expectations.
Will you be pricing
the main
up?
sticking points to be the water tax?
No, I think we'll have a conversation about our goals in that area, and I think there'll be a shared goal around water quality.
Will you be pricing up New Zealand First policies as well?
No, but we will be pricing overall what the overall outcome of those negotiations would be. We have a responsibility to do that because, as we signed up to in the beginning of this campaign, we have a set of budget responsibility rules which we will continue to hold ourselves to, and any negotiation outcomes to as well.
Is it negotiable, the current track for surpluses and debt?
We've stuck firmly to the budget responsibility rules, as have the Green Party, and that's what we'll be holding ourselves to.
But New Zealand First hasn't stuck to those budget responsibility rules. Is that a concern going forward?
No, it's not a concern, but it is a set of rules that we will apply to ourselves and any government we lead.
Will that be something that you'll be chatting to him about? That he'll have to come under the same sort of budget responsibility rules as you and the Greens?
Oh, look, as part of any negotiation, we'll be making sure that we cost everything that we're talking about. We'll be adding that filter over our negotiations because that's what we've signed up to.
Is Republic Service available in any shape or form to help with the cost figures for policy preparation?
Oh, look, I have had the indication that that has been the practice in the past.
What would you be taking advantage of?
Oh, if that need arises, we'll be making sure that in order to make sure we form a stable, responsible and durable coalition government, that we'll be making use of the resources available to make sure we do that.
Will the team be solely made up of...
So can I just finish that up?
Sure.
So Treasury will be available to do some costings if necessary?
I've been advised that that is a resource that's available.
Will the team
Narrows put out a press release as a government minister today. Is that appropriate, or should he wait?
I haven't seen the subject matter. Certainly, of course, always you'll have a caretaker government, and that's natural. And so there'll be some matters that can't wait. But without seeing the individual issue that he put a statement out on, I wouldn't want to comment.
It's a scholarship.
Oh, well, look, there might be timelines around that. That could well be fair, but generally, certainly we are in a caretaker period.
What about appointments to the Broadcasting Standards Authority?
That would really depend on whether or not there are obligations around those appointments being made within a certain timeline. That would have been my expectation.
Will the,
If those timelines aren't tight, then those appointments like that I would have thought would be held over.
will the negotiating team be made up solely of MPs and maybe ex-MPs, or will be officials from the party, Andrew Curtin, some lawyers, that kind of thing?
We have plans around who our senior negotiating team will be. That's something I will confirm closer to the time.
Is
What do
the
you make of
output-
Taylor Sperring's salary? Do you think he's paid too much?
I think that it will make people's eyes water to see that salary. It is pretty extraordinary. I imagine the shareholders in particular will have some probably pretty strong feelings about it.
Why would the shareholders worry?
In part, they're the ones that it's a cut from them, isn't it?
You like Winston's safe for pay idea?
Oh, look, I think that it wouldn't be unreasonable for shareholders to have some say over the kinds of payouts, the kinds of salaries that are being paid out within Fonterra. I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation, and if they were to seek that, I wouldn't blame them.
What about the idea of forcing companies to report salaries as a multiple of their own employees' incomes?
It wouldn't take much for people to work that out based on the payouts for Fonterra.
Can we expect Helen Clark to be involved at all in negotiations with Mr. Peters?
Oh, I will be drawing on senior experience, but Helen is quite busy at the moment travelling with her own matters.
Did you have any concerns about Sean Plunkett being appointed to the PSA?
I'm not going to get into individual appointments, but I would have thought that if there wasn't any particular requirements around vacancies or timelines, that would be something you would hold over during your caretaker period.
So you think that appointment, regardless of the person, should have been held over?
Yeah, I would have thought if there's no urgency over it, if there's no immediate need to fill that vacancy, and there may well have been, I would have thought that would be something that would be held over.
Have you raised this with National?
No, I have not. Okay, all right, thanks everyone. Thank you.